warm-up music for you. If you're ready, sing along. If you're still settling in, keep settling. Wow. That was not planned. Yeah, that was awesome. Are we ready? Okay. Okay, let's start us off. Last line. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting a message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting a message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting a message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting my message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Good morning and welcome to Unity of Walnut Creek. Ooh, nice. And we're in our third week of Stories of Triumph, and we're going to be free and unlimited. Stand up and join us. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. Right now, right now. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. You are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. Right now, right now. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited. Right now, right now. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us. We are free, we are unlimited. Right now, right now.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning. Good morning. That's my 11:30 crowd. My name is Ron, and I'm a licensed Unity teacher here at Unity of Walnut Creek, and it's my pleasure to say welcome. Thank you for being here. Your presence is felt right here. So thank you for being. And then everybody go, your presence is felt right here. Turn to your neighbor and say, your presence is felt right. And speaking of turning, please turn to the camera and wave to our brothers and sisters online. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Please know that you are an important part of our spiritual community, and we wouldn't be who we are without you. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate that. And one more thing about enjoying the service, if you could please turn your cell phones off. So, yeah, please turn your cell phones off. That'd be really great. Thank you for doing that. So we have really talented musicians here, right? Yo, bro? Yo, bro. All right. And today, the boys in the corner, there's Dave and Max on the bass and Dan on the drum. Dan, stand up so I can see you, man. And then our singers today, we already heard from Lisa. We'll be hearing from her again. And Annie Love Villers is somewhere. And Dave Paulson. So we all get to hear from their hearts. Unity is a positive path for spiritual living. And our mission here at Unity of Walnut Creek is this. In loving community, we empower spiritual growth by modeling and teaching universal spiritual principles. Amen? Amen. Let's say that line together. We empower spiritual growth by modeling and teaching universal principles. Thank you. Okay. That went over like a lead balloon. We'll keep working on it. So anyway, so thank you. So now it's time to say our statement of faith. So if you would please take a deep breath and then say thank you, and then we'll move into our statement of faith. So take a deep breath. And as you release it, say thank you. And let's say our statement of faith. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, the all-loving goodness of God. And just soak that in and know it to be true. And now I'd like to welcome our newcomers. Thank you so much for being here. If you are with us for the first time and if you are comfortable in doing so, we invite you to raise your hands now so that we may bring you a welcome packet and a wooden necklace handmade by one of our congregants. If you choose to wear this necklace today, our welcome ambassadors will be able to identify you. We have any? Yeah, great. There's a few of them. Well, thank you very much. Inside these packets are our connection cards. Please take it to our bookstore for an additional welcome gift. If you would rather, you may pick up your packet at the welcome table and still visit the bookstore for a gift inside. So thank you so much for being here. And for our veterans, there is also a connection card for you in the pocket of the seat in front of you. And on these connection cards, you may submit a prayer request, and our prayer chaplains will pray with you throughout the week. And also on these cards, you may give feedback on our service, and we will look at them and take them into wonderful spiritual consideration. So thank you for doing that. And now it is time to greet your neighbor. Yay! So if you please stand and say hello to your neighbor until you hear the gong.
Hello, my name is Mike, and I want to share some exciting opportunities happening in our wonderful community. Today's talk concludes our three-part series focusing on stories of triumph. Join us after the 11:30 service for a potluck and a wonderful concert to celebrate our community's ability to overcome challenges. Please bring a dish to share for the potluck. Sprouts is down the street in case you forgot something. And our musicians will be at the potluck to sign autographs from their admirers. Are you interested in discussing the events that are happening in our nation? Come and join us on Thursday night at 7 o'clock here in the sanctuary. Reverend Kristen is facilitating a conversation about our thoughts and feelings. Then we'll release the heavy energies and raise up our level of consciousness. This event will help us shine our lights brightly so we can aid in the healing of ourselves, our nation, and the world. And Unity will be providing lunch for homeless people staying at the Concord Adult Shelter. We're seeking team members to help us prepare sandwiches on the second Saturday each month. If you're available on that day, we would greatly appreciate the help. Even if you're only available September 9, please join us. It's a great way to get a feel for how easy it is to make food for the homeless without making a long-term commitment. If you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet on the welcome table. And now I'd like to invite Jeannie Fusen to the platform.
Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to personally invite you to Nourishing the Body Summit this Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. It's in the community room. That way we could do gentle movements and have snacks. That evening we are going to have Sherry Miller and Angie Lambert, who have taught here. They will share the 7 keys to radiant health. That evening they're focusing on 2 of them, body wisdom and conscious eating. We'll also have Allison Tucker, who will share with us the spiritual journey of Qigong, of universal love, of unconditional love, and she'll lead us in gentle movements of that practice. It should be an evening of fun and insight and inspiration. Please come.
That's going to be a wonderful opportunity. Find out more about these and other activities online and in today's bulletin. Now let's enjoy another musical selection.
Good morning, everyone. It's a little hot. Gonna wash the dust off my soul. Gonna listen to some rock and roll. No cares, come what may, I'm making a beautiful day. Gonna find my friends, help them see, and come together, 'cause I believe that together we'll wash the gray away. I'm making a beautiful day. Let me hear you say, ooh, ooh, my, I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what do you say? Let's not forget we're alive. I'm gonna climb that hill behind my house, see what God's place is all about. 'Cause from above it all you can't help but say it's gonna be a beautiful day. It's gonna be a beautiful day. Let me hear you say, ooh, ooh, my, I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what do you say? Let's not forget we're alive. I'm gonna turn my enemies into friends. What's broken gets stronger when it mends. When we all come together, this song we'll play. We'll sing, it's a beautiful day. It's gonna be my beautiful day. And let me hear you say, ooh, ooh, my. I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what's that you say? Let's not forget we're alive. Thank you.
Doesn't he have a lovely voice? Yeah, thank you, Dave. So I want to invite you at this time to prepare for meditation. So whatever makes you comfortable, you may want to take things off of your lap and close your eyes and settle in. And we'll bring you in with some music to begin. So we find ourselves centered in the heart. With every breath, remembering a bit more of who we are. Whole and well in every way. Made of the essence of spirit. With every breath, we remember the truth of who we are. I am love. I am light, the kind of light that illuminates the earth. I am love in action, as compassion, as healing. And I offer this love and this light that I am myself and to all whom I encounter. Noticing as I give to myself that every breath I take takes me a little deeper into the knowing of the divine love and light that I am in truth. And every exhalation is a release of any thought of lack or limitation or less than this truth. And so taking a few moments in the silence, breathing in the truth of who I am, breathing out the falsehoods of who I am not. I carry myself deeper to the core of my divine self in the silence. And now remembering who I am in truth. I carry this knowing of the light and the love that I am out into the world. Beaming the truth of who I am so that others may awaken to the truth of who they are. For we are remembering together. And so it is.
I am remembering who I am.
Well, on that note of remembering who we are, for those of you who are just joining us, we are in our third week in the Stories of Triumph, and these are stories from our own congregation. Beautiful, inspiring stories that allow us to get to know each other at a more intimate level. And I know that you too will find places in the stories where maybe pieces of your own story connect, since we know that we are all one. So I want to invite forward Ray Joyce, Marcella, and Danae Ligon to tell their stories this morning. The three of us will be reading each of their stories. And we'll begin with Danae's.
My name is Danae, and this is my story.
I came into this world on a wish, and I dwell inside one bright universe where death and rebirth and life are one.
Starting at about 5 years old, my sister would wish on the stars every night. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight, I wish I might have my baby sister, please.
It took 4 years until her wish was finally granted. I was born after my parents had experienced 3 miscarriages.
Was my soul also one of those miscarriages? God only knows, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Before I was born, my father was stationed in India during World War II. And sometimes I wonder if he picked up a little piece of my soul there.
He'd seen Gandhi, and all he could say was that he saw this skinny, half-naked man standing in the middle of the road.
What? Seeing Gandhi would have been the highlight of my life.
Mama and Papa were not spiritual people. Spirituality skipped a generation in our family. I related more to my grandmother, who was a Scottish-Irish poet, and Granddad, who was a Native American.
We moved to Texas when I was still a baby. It was a hard move, especially for my mom, who had gone from being the queen of a very small town in Oklahoma to a lost soul in the big city of Houston.
I always looked forward to summers when we would go back to Oklahoma and stay with my grandparents, who kept turtles and other animals in their backyard.
From about 2 years old, I spent a lot of time outdoors alone, and I felt more connected to animals than people.
I did have 2 imaginary friends, Gape and Anne. They had chairs at the table, which drove my mother crazy, and my grandmother thought it was delightful.
The other family members who I love dearly is my sister. In all the family photos, she's the only one I'm smiling with.
She was 17 when she got married and left home. I felt very alone and less safe.
Mama could be verbally abusive, and Papa was a nudist, and that was just odd and uncomfortable, especially for a young girl.
It wasn't long after my sister left home that I died. Good Friday, 1960. I was 9 years old.
On that Good Friday, I begged Mama to buy me a marshmallow Easter bunny while we were Easter shopping for dinner.
Since I was allergic to chocolate and peanuts, she always censored packages before I ate it. The meager list of ingredients passed her test, and it was bought with the promise to save it for after dinner.
Sweets were a rare treat for me, so I ate dinner quickly, focusing on that pink bunny in waiting.
I undid the crisp plastic wrap with great anticipation and eagerly nibbled at the perky ears.
Yum! The taste was divine. I devoured the rest of the bunny, savoring the sweetness lingering in my mouth.
To say I was in heaven was an understatement.
Within a short time, however, I began to feel as if a million ants were crawling on my body. Although hives were my usual reaction to allergies, they were quickly taking over the inside of my body this time.
Mama made a panicky call to the doctor and gave me a dose of Benadryl, but then my hands and lips swelled and another dose was given.
The second dose should have knocked my 60-pound frame on the floor, but I had trouble swallowing it as my throat was closing in.
Sheer panic set in as my breathing began to be shallower and shallower.
My next memory remained a mystery to me for many years. I was gliding above the hospital table like a dragonfly hovering in the air.
I peered down from the ceiling at Papa. He was clutching the door frame and crying as if a wall of emotion kept him from entering the room.
From my ethereal perch, I could only make out the tops of Mama's head and the doctor's head.
The blinding silver light suspended over the table where I lay blocked my view of my own small, lifeless frame.
I could hear a faint whisper, like the sound inside of a seashell, and the whisper got louder, and then a breeze caressed my cheeks and drew me in. I felt a love stronger than I had ever known before.
The bright lights of the room began to dim, and a glowing feeling filled my body. I basked in that feeling, growing more and more peaceful and joyful by the minute.
Suddenly, it felt as if I'd been thrown into a giant vat of ice water. The doctor had pumped something into my veins that had pulmonally backed into my body. My head was pounding, and I felt a surge of shock and anger at being wrenched from this blissful euphoria.
As I became conscious of my body again, I felt my mama holding me, and she was sobbing and saying, "I almost lost you."
Years later, I mentioned to Mama that I had never seen Father cry. She said that he did cry when his mother died, and again when I almost died. She recounted how he was so upset that he stood in the doorway and couldn't even walk in, unable to enter the room because of his sadness.
I realized then what I had witnessed floating above that table wasn't a dream. It was a near-death experience.
3 years after my near-death experience, and the day before we were leaving for Oklahoma to visit my grandparents, my beloved granddad made his transition.
When he woke up in the morning, he bolted out of the house with his pajamas under his clothes, walking 3 blocks to his office, where he told my uncle a joke, had a massive heart attack, and promptly keeled over.
My grandma was passionately in love with this man her whole life. I think he knew, and that it would be devastating to die in front of her.
I was 12, and I didn't understand death. I hadn't even experienced the death of an animal yet.
When we went to the church and I saw him lying in a coffin, it just freaked me out.
They were going to put him in the ground, and he wasn't dead to me. He couldn't be dead, because I reasoned I'd been where he is, and I wasn't dead.
The way people saw death just did not sit well with me. Death was more fluid and a permeable state.
A year later, we were visiting my grandma, and I was sound asleep. She always left a night light on, and through the doorway, I could see Granddad's old easy chair.
I suddenly woke up and saw him smiling at me. He nodded it as if to say, "It's all good." I sat there boring my eyes into his black, beautiful brown eyes, and that same euphoric bliss came over me that I had experienced when I had died.
I reached up and patted my cheeks. Is this happening? Am I alive?
I told my grandmother, and she said, "Yes, he's here. He won't leave because he knows I need him."
That same year, at age 12, I met my husband, Bill. I was a dancer. He was a singer in middle school theater.
We began dating at 15, and at 16, we had an abortion.
Bill and I were on a spiritual path together. His brother gave me the book, There's a River, by Edgar Cayce.
The psychic realm was a comfortable place for me, where both the dead and the living moved about.
At 15, I joined ARE, the Association of Research and Enlightenment, founded by Edgar Cayce in the 1930s. I tried to bridge the Christian beliefs I had grown up with, but in the South, it's one way or the highway.
You know.
I continued to interact with Granddad. Sometimes he traveled to me. One time, I was cramming for a math test and I fell asleep. I woke up with someone patting me on the back.
I thought it was my college roommate, but the room was filled with the smell of Granddad's aftershave, and I knew he'd come to wake me up just in time to finish studying and to get to the test on time.
Just shy of 21, I married Bill after 9 years of friendship and dating, and we moved to New York.
It was 1972, and New York was a hotbed for ARE. I was in the right place at the right time to dive in headfirst.
One day, I was at a psychic fundraiser for an animal shelter. An elf-looking man approached me and said something about my grandfather. He had my full attention.
It turned out the elf man was Dr. Thomas Mann, who was the chief druid of the England Druids, and our acquaintances led me to study with the Druids for over 4 months.
The Druids were of particular interest to me because I wanted to study one of the most primitive basic religions. My love of nature was a natural fit.
In the first gatehouse of the Druids, the ceremony is practiced. It reminded me of communion, and it helped me to integrate my Christian roots.
I also got involved with hypnosis there. Hypnosis and meditation together opened the way for me to see my next steps in life. I would visualize an open path and ask, what's going to come next? A visual would appear, and soon after, it would manifest in my life.
Those next life steps included having children and moving. Bill and I had Kristen first, and 6 years later, we had Justin.
One day when Justin was really small, my sister and I were laying on my grandfather's bed, and he jumped up and said, "Remember when I was your grandpa and I used to tickle you on this bed?" And then he ran off. I was stunned.
I wanted more children, but an injury lifting a too heavy planter resulted in a hysterectomy.
Meanwhile, Bill and I had started a wine business in New York that led us to Napa. I worked for the Napa County Health and Human Services, where I had a heavy caseload of children in need.
I was always surrounding the children with a bubble of love and protection for them. That's all I needed to do to open the door to work with them.
One day, a co-worker showed me a picture of a little boy and said, "Someone is looking for you."
I said, "He's cute, but no. I have a bunch of animals, I'm working too much, and besides, I'm not looking for more children right now."
Then Bill asked me if I wanted to go to a wine business meeting at Debbie's house. It happened to be the place where this baby was staying.
Overstimulation can be really hard for drug babies. Baby Glenn was so sensitive that he could only eat in a completely darkened room because he could not handle more than one stimulus at a time.
If you picked him up, his whole body stiffened. I was singing to him, and he started to soften and hugged up to me.
And then Bill took him and started doing what I call the daddy rock. And I looked at them and went, uh-oh.
Debbie needed respite care, so we did weekends, and then it got longer and longer.
One day, while we had Glenn, Kristen was home for a visit from college, and she and I were talking about the abortion I had had and Bill when we were 16.
Bill was walking through the kitchen while we were talking, and he just stopped cold. He looked like he'd seen a ghost.
And then he said, "We have to adopt Glenn. He came to us once before and we rejected him. We need to take him now." He was convinced that Glenn was the same soul as our aborted baby.
It wasn't the first time Bill and I had considered adopting. The first year we were married, I worked with foster care children, fell in love with Christopher. He was 2 years old. His mother had broken his arm.
They let me take him home for the weekend. Bill and I took Christopher to the circus, and we enjoyed him so much, we actually wanted to adopt him.
When we went back to offer ourselves as parents, he was gone. Christopher was sent back home to his abusive birth mother.
I was devastated.
Now, while we stood in the kitchen considering adopting Glenn, the memories flooded in. Would we keep his name? Kristen suggested we name him Christopher Glenn.
I learned when Glenn was born, his drunk father, who was also named Glenn, came to the hospital and said, "I bet that baby isn't even mine."
Glenn's mother grabbed the certificate and scratched out the first name to name him after his father to prove it. The papers originally read Christopher Glenn.
It gave us chills.
Glenn is my teacher of patience and acceptance. He was verbally caustic even at age 5 and would frequently have violent outbursts.
Bill took an emotional step back, and I believe that may have been the beginning of our undoing. We divorced many years later.
In 2010, I was seeking spiritual community. So I looked online for an ARE group, study group. When I would put ARE in the search, Unity of Walnut Creek popped up. I thought, what is unity?
The church was meeting at Heather Farm, and when I walked in on my first Sunday, Eileen Weiler welcomed me.
I took notice of the handsome man, Don, who sat next to me. In January of that year, I had made a hypnotic recording of myself stating all the qualities I wanted to manifest in a relationship. I would listen to that tape at night when I was falling asleep.
And several months later, Don and I started dating.
I went to Hollister Rand, a well-known channeler, to get a reading on this new relationship. And she said the woman who had connected the two of us was holding her head and winking. Her name was Jeannie.
I did not know a Jeannie, so I asked Don if he did. It turns out that Don and Jeannie were together at Unity for a few years. Jeannie had made her transition from a brain tumor, which is why she was holding her head.
Now my father's coming around in the form of my 100-pound dog, Shiloh. None of this kind of thing is strange to me.
I don't understand the other side to be other side. I'll be guided to turn left or right while driving, and there will be something there that reminds me of someone who has transitioned.
Just because they aren't in body does not mean they're not here.
I live within the veil, not on one side or the other, but somewhere in between the two worlds, spirit and body, heaven and earth, death and life. They're all one.
I feel blessed that we live in such a huge and glorious universe made of both form and formless spirit. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Let's bless this wonderful woman, Danae, and her powerful story with "You Are a Blessing to the World." Yes, and Don, please join us.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is to the world is a blessing to the world.
So this is always the time for the nice deep breath. Transition to yet another one of these amazing women, Ray Joyce.
Thank you. My name is Ray Joyce, and this is my story.
I've lived at least 2 lives, one south of the equator in Africa and one in America, one as a fundamentalist Christian and the other as a free spiritual being.
I was born into religion. My grandfather, uncles, and brother-in-law were all ministers, and my parents were pioneering missionaries.
My parents met at St. Paul Bible Institute in Minnesota in the early 1930s with a mutual call to Christian missionary work.
They learned French to speak with the people of Gabon, Africa, and Ipunu, a dialect, the Bapunu tribe, in order to evangelize them.
My sister was an infant when we trekked 2 days further into the jungle to set up a new compound and settle into our small bark hut.
During lunch one day, I must have been smacking my lips because my dad said, "If you want to eat like that, you should go live with the natives."
Well, I was only 5 years old, but I thought that sounded like a great idea. I packed a few of my belongings in my little red bandana, and I fearlessly headed out the door.
At the turn in the road to the village, I encountered the very tall, dark fisherman who often sold us the fish he'd caught. I always felt intimidated by him, and much to my parents' relief, I scurried home quickly.
Despite my breakaway, being a daughter of missionaries was all about obedience to the many rules and ever-looming will of God.
Having arrived when I was 3, I considered myself African. I loved the people, the culture, and the language.
And I loved my African friends. If they were hauling water from the river, I would make sure my load was equal to theirs.
Over time, the missionary compound became more developed, and roads were made to access it by truck.
As the divide widened and I aged, I wondered, why don't missionaries live with the Africans? Why do we eat different food, sit at a table, and live in a different kind of house?
I caught on quickly to the missionary view. Our lifestyle and our culture were superior, and we needed to show them a better way to live.
But I saw it differently. My African girlfriends and I were the same. They even gave me an African name, Binyumba. There were 2 others who had the same name, but they said I could be 3.
I even tried to dress like them, but it didn't really work to turn down and tuck in the tops of my little dresses.
I was 10 when the African kids came to live in the compound, to go to school there, and to work to earn their keep.
Younger kids in the village were so disappointed they couldn't come too. I got this idea to teach the smaller children when the room and charts were free in the afternoon.
In turn, they helped me create the garden I wanted, but was too much work for me to do alone.
The next year, when it was time to go back to school, my students entered 2nd grade because they already knew how to read and write.
I was 9 at the church service back in the U.S. when Dad invited anyone called to be a missionary in Gabon to come to the altar. I enthusiastically responded.
Everything I did from that day forward was focused on becoming a missionary in Gabon, just like my parents.
My Mapono friends were my extended family, and God had called me to be service to them.
My mother was my teacher in the jungle, so my first exposure to school was March 1944 in the U.S. while we were on break.
In music class, the teacher asked if someone had a song request. My hand shot up. Onward, Christian soldiers! And then I realized that I had made a faux pas.
By 7th grade, my parents were concerned I was becoming too African. So they sent me to Cable, Wisconsin, population 310, to live with my paternal grandparents.
Grandpa was the local pastor, so it was my responsibility to be an exemplary Christian.
When the class had square dancing lessons or they performed showboat, I was to stay in the classroom and study.
In high school, I gladly returned to Gabon with my family and finished my studies with correspondences.
During that time, I met a young Frenchman, Bernard, who lived with his family in the French Congo.
Love blossomed over Chinese checkers. When he shared that he too had a calling to be a missionary, I thought, wow, he knows the language, he knows the culture, this is divine intervention.
We married shortly after my 19th birthday and went to St. Paul, Minnesota for ministerial training in 1956.
My young husband had such talent for fixing things. I thought he was brilliant, and I couldn't wait to get back to Africa and begin our life's work together.
We were into our 3rd year of schooling with a baby boy in tow when Bernard announced that we would not be missionaries. He was going to become a Christian businessman instead.
How could it be that a Frenchman would tie me to the United States? How could a Christian man intervene in God's will for my life?
I felt confused, disillusioned, and voiceless.
Bernard's favorite Bible verse was Ephesians 5:22, "Wives, be obedient to your husbands." He ignored verse 25, "Husbands, love your wives."
I tried to be like Sarah of the Old Testament and follow my husband as the head of the household, but I could not understand how this could be God's will.
I was deeply unhappy, but what could I do? Divorce was not an option. What mission field would take a divorced woman with a child?
Deacons from the church came over, knowing how distraught I felt, and they prayed for God to give me more patience so that I could be a better wife.
I thought, well, I'm never calling them again.
Still, I was a dutiful wife and strict, loving mother. I taught Sunday school and was heavily involved in church.
We had another son, and years later, when I was pregnant again, Bernard said, "If it's a girl, I will not raise it, just leave it at the hospital."
But love overcame. When Michelle was born, he ran around the neighborhood showing her off.
Yet God kept getting further and further away from me. I felt abandoned. If God of divine will had completely left, couldn't I at least find the God of comfort?
When I sought emotional or spiritual understanding from the church elders, they would offer more prayers for me to be a submissive wife.
So I started searching more deeply within for answers.
As I struggled with the forbidden idea of divorce, I had a reoccurring dream in which I was in a courtroom on a witness stand.
The judge was gentle and kind. He said that he would grant me a divorce, but everyone in the jury box, my family, and everyone in the courtroom, my church friends, would turn against me.
After having this dream many times, I finally turned to the judge in my dream and said, "Yes, I understand, and I'm willing to take that risk."
After 22 years of an unhappy marriage, I chose divorce.
And to my great relief and surprise, life got better. I got a job and I was able to support Michelle and me while I attended the university.
I tried different churches, but as soon as they started saying we were going to hell, I quit.
The first Sunday I did not go to church, I really felt weird. My whole life had been centered in church.
I was in my 40s, breaking with all authorities and taking back my power. My husband, then my church, and I even retrieved my house keys from my parents.
Now, who is going to tell me how to live life? Wow, that was a lot of freedom and responsibility. It was a watershed moment. I was free to find my own path.
I started watching Dr. Schuler on TV on Sunday mornings. He shared a positive view of Christianity.
I still struggled with the idea of changing my beliefs, and I wondered if the Bapunu people felt a similar struggle when they were told to turn away from their long-held lifetime beliefs.
I certainly empathize with being oppressed by others who think they know what's in your best interest.
When my daughter was 13, I met John, who was on a similar path, and he even watched Dr. Schuler.
In addition to spiritual companionship, mutual respect, and love, he brought his 2 teenage children into our lives, and the 3 teenagers formed a beautiful bond.
We were married and began to look for like-minded seekers. One day we received a brochure from a local church offering a positive path for spiritual living.
The following Sunday, we went to church, Unity of Woodbury, Minnesota. They sang the Lord's Prayer, and then Festus, the minister, gave an inspirational message. He was from Nigeria, Africa.
It was my turn to learn from an African minister, and I did. The God out there, the punishing God, was suddenly the loving God right here in my own heart.
I could not stop crying that Sunday, and for several weeks more in service, I cried happy tears of coming home.
The non-dogmatic approach, metaphysical interpretations of Scripture, and openness to all paths and people really spoke to me.
God's will became an inner wisdom, leading me in all matters of my life without judgment or condemnation.
I no longer see life's challenges as God's punishment. Knowing I'm co-creator in this earthly experience has brought me a sense of underlying peace and strength.
If I have any regrets, it's that I didn't find unity before my boys were indoctrinated in the teachings of original sin and rigidity.
My son Paul said recently, "I know I'm a sinner, and it breaks my heart to think that I'm one of the people who taught him that heavy lie. I just didn't know then what I know now."
When my son Mark unexpectedly made his transition at age 48, I didn't think I was being tested as I would have in my previous life.
I mourned and also felt a peaceful knowing that all was in divine order for his soul's path.
Our family was gathered around his bed when the life support was removed, and I was so glad for my unity principles and the ability to let go of the worry and fear of whether or not he was going to heaven or to hell.
Instead, I sang to him, "You are free and unlimited. There are no chains that bind you."
When I became a massage therapist, I honored my mother by offering massages to 2 of my mom's old missionary friends.
As I listened to them express their confining beliefs and prejudices, I saw just how liberated I had become.
I think I would have made a lousy missionary.
The Bapunu people will always be a part of my soul. I am the only living person who heard their oral myths and witnessed their customs firsthand before they were obliterated by evangelism.
My 5-year-old self was not only courageous when she ran to live with her African friends, she knew something about equality and freedom.
That knowing has helped me find a path that is most true to my soul.
I may have been born into worldly religion, but I have since midwifed myself into spiritual freedom and love and acceptance.
And just as I sang to Mark, the truth is, I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me.
And let's sing that very song to this beautiful woman, Rachel.
You are free. You are free. You are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free. You are unlimited. Right now, right now. You are free. You are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free.
So this song is for Ray Joyce and Danae and for Larry and for Zula and for Christine and Sarah if she's here. And those are the people that have shared their stories the last 3 weeks. And it's also for all of you. What would I do if I knew that I could not fail? If I believed would the wind always fill up my sails? How far would I go? What would I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge where true believers dare to tread. Never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to do what we secretly dream? What would you ask if you knew you could have anything? Like the mighty oak sleeps in the midst of a seed, are there miracles in you and me? I know there are. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge where true believers dare to tread. Never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What step will I take? Today I am brave. So join with me on this chorus. What will I do today? I am brave. 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 I think that you are. God bless you all.
So a few minutes ago, we heard what our Unity of Walnut Creek mission is. And these words were said, by modeling and teaching universal spiritual principles. Danae, Ray Joyce, that's exactly what you did for us for the last few minutes. So thank you very much. Okay. Where am I? I had this all set up and then I was inspired. Okay. So, our prayer chaplains are available with us after the service to provide personal prayer support. They are wearing the lavender stoles. If you have a prayer concern, whether it's a celebration or not so much a celebration, they are here and available to lend that prayer support for you. So please take advantage of them. Don't take advantage of them, but please take advantage of the opportunity to have someone pray with you. This is a powerful opportunity to have your intentions raised up in consciousness. So please take advantage. Never mind. I'm just going to stop.
Be brave.
Hey, it's time for a prosperity celebration. Yes, all right, yeah. So let us now open our hearts to the consciousness of giving as we align with the universal laws of circulation. As we give, so shall we receive. In truth, there is no lack or limitation. There is only abundance, because abundance is our true nature. There are a variety of ways to give financially to our community. For credit card donations, use PushPay on your smartphones or take an envelope from the clipboard in the back of the chair in front of you. And for our brothers and sisters online, you also may use PushPay or use the donate button on the Watch Live page. So thank you for all of your love offerings. And now if you would take your tithe in your hand and repeat our affirmation together. Divine love, one with me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am joy-filled and grateful.
Well, the music that you've been hearing today is a preview of our concert at 2 o'clock. So we want to remind you that there will be a potluck, and then we will, members of our musical community right here will be playing beautiful music for you. Lost and searching for a home. I belong. Oh, then I get so inspired, like my heart is set on fire. I was searching for the key. It's right here inside of me. Walk through the dark anxiety, shake off the insecurities, step into a light that's true. It's a new feeling deep inside me, and it's true and strong, and I'm renewed, an inner light to guide me. I finally found the faith that I belong. And oh, what a feeling inside me when I feel the heartbeat of every soul. Oh, there's a fire burning. I can open up and come in from the cold. I got a new feeling deep inside me, and it's true and strong, and I'm renewed, an inner light to guide me. I finally found the faith. Oh, I finally found the faith. Yes, I finally found the faith that I belong.
Thank you, Lisa. Please bring the tithes and the gifts forward so that we may be blessed to overflowing as we already are. Let's bless these gifts as we have been so blessed by the stories and songs throughout this series. And the blessing is on the screen together. We give thanks for the ever-increasing, unceasing flow of absolute good in our lives now. And so it is. Let's sing in our children with Marching in the Light.
We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God.
And dancing too. Let's bless our children and teachers together. Youth and teachers, you are loved, special, and important. The light of God shines through you. And our prayer of protection, please join hands with those nearby. And together, let's share our prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. are the light and the love and the peace on earth right now. So let your light shine and have fun. Hi. You guys have fun?